Students of Standard 9th, welcome to the English class, and this is your Puja teacher. Today we begin with a new lesson, that is 1.5, The Necklace. Let us begin with some warming up activities. As you could see on your screen, talking about myself. Students, this is your activity which you will enjoy a lot. You have to give some details about your own self. So write few lines about yourself, your name, appearance, family, the place where you live, your school, your friends, neighbors, relatives, your likes, dislikes, hobbies, and what you are good at, etc. etc. Now, create an imaginary persona for yourself. It can be quite different from your real self, or you may choose a fictional character, a character from a novel, story, etc. Write a few lines about this imaginary persona and introduce yourself in that role. Two insert before you. One insert real self and the other insert imaginary persona. So you can just write up. And the next is my dream position. Is there something that you would like to own more than anything else? Describe your dream position with the help of the following points. You may add your own points as well. So students, this is a wave diagram on your screen and my dream position, what it is. So it may be any one of this, moreover how it is. So whether you would share it with others, its appearance, color, shape, size, etc. Or what about its use? Where you saw it first, what you would use it for, how you would use it for, why you want it so much, what you would do to get it. So these are all your personal responses and you can just jot them down willingly. And now we begin with the story, The Necklace. Students, very first, I would like to introduce you to the characters in the story. The characters in the story, Matilda Loisel, the protagonist of the story. She is the lead lady. Monsieur Loisel, Matilda's husband, and Madame Forestier, Matilda's wealthy friend. So these are the characters. And now what about the story? The short story, The Necklace, takes place in France. Several years ago, Matilda Loisel, a lower middle class woman who works as a clerk for the Ministers of Education. She lives in a flat with her husband. Their lives are not luxurious, but they are poor, merely simple. Matilda, however, longs to be rich. Dear students, it is a fictional story. It is a fictional short story in the genre of realism. Please take note. The author of this story was Guy de Maupassant. The story ended with a twist, also known as an ironic ending. This type of end was a hallmark of Maupassant's style. The story tells that one must be satisfied and content with what one has. Also, one must not hide the truth. In this story, Matilda Loisel faces a very hard time as a result of her desires. So now we begin with the story. Students, you could see the story on your screen, but I will not go with the text reading. Perhaps I would like to have the story narration of my own. Just I will scroll down the pages for you. So here we begin with the story. She stands for Matilda. She was one of those pretty young ladies born as if through an error of destiny. into a family of clerks. She had no dowry, no hopes, no means of becoming known, loved, and married by a man either rich or distinguished. And she allowed herself to marry a petty clerk in the office of the Board of Education. She was simple, but she was unhappy. She suffered insistently, feeling herself born for all delicacies and luxuries. She suffered from the poverty of her apartment. The shabby walls and the worn chairs, all these things tortured and angered her. When she seated herself for dinner opposite her husband, who uncovered the tureen with a delighted air, saying, "Oh, the good pot pie! I know nothing better than that," she would think of elegant dinners, of silver shining. She thought of the exquisite food served in marvelous dishes. She had neither frocks nor jewels, nothing, and she loved only those things. She had a rich friend, a schoolmate at the convent, who she did not like to visit. She suffered so much when she returned. She wept for the whole days from despair and disappointment. She One evening, her husband returned elated, bearing in his hand a large envelope. "Here," he said, "here is something for you." She quickly drew out a printed card on which were inscribed these words: "The Minister of Public Instruction and Madame George Ramponne ask the honor of Mr. and Madame Loisel's company Monday evening, January 18th, at the Minister's residence." Instead of being delighted as her husband had hoped, she threw the invitation spitefully upon the table, murmuring, "What do you suppose I want with that? But, my dearie, I thought it would make you happy. You never go out, and this is an occasion, and a fine one. Everyone wishes one, and it is very select. Not many are given to employees. You will see the whole official there." She looked at him with an irritated eye and declared impatiently, "What do you suppose I have to wear to such a thing as that?" He had not thought of that. He stammered, "Why, the dress you wear when you go to the theatre. It seems very pretty to me." He was silent, stupefied, in dismay at the sight of his wife weeping. He stammered, "What is the matter? What is the matter?" By a violent effort, she had controlled her vexation and responded in a calm voice, wiping her tears, moist cheeks, "Nothing. Only I have no dress and consequently I cannot go to this affair. Give your card to some colleague whose wife is better fitted out than I." He was grieved, but answered, "Let us see, Matilda. How much would a suitable costume cost? Something that would serve for other occasions, something very simple." She reflected for some seconds, thinking of a sum that could that she could ask for without bringing with it an immediate refusal and a frightened exclamation from the economical clerk. Finally she said in a hesitating voice, "I cannot tell exactly, but it seems to me that 400 francs ought to cover it." He turned a little pale, for he had saved just this sum to buy a gun that he might be able to join some hunting parties the next summer, with some friends who went to shoot larks on Sunday. Nevertheless, he answered, "Very well. I will give you 400 francs, but try to have a pretty dress. The day of the ball approached, and Madame Loisel seemed sad, disturbed, anxious. Nevertheless, her dress was nearly ready. Her husband said to her one evening, "What is the matter with you? You have acted strangely for 2 or 3 days." She responded, "I am vexed not to have a jewel, nothing to adorn myself with. I shall have such a poverty-stricken look. I would prefer not to go to the party." He replied, "You can wear some natural flowers. In this season they look very chic." She was not convinced. "No," she replied, "there is nothing more humiliating than to have a shabby air in the midst of rich women." Then her husband cried out, "How stupid we are! Go and find your friend, Madame Forestier, and ask her to lend you her jewels." She uttered a cry of joy. "It is true," she said. "I had not thought of that." The next day she took herself to find friend's house and related her story to distress. I repeat, the next day she took herself to friend's house and related her story of distress. Madame Forestier went to her closet, took out a large jewel case, brought it, opened it, and said, "Choose, my dear." She saw at first some bracelets, then a collar of pearls, then a Venetian cross of gold and jewels of admirable workmanship. She tried the jewels before the glass, hesitated but couldn't neither decide to take them or leave them. Then she asked, "Have you nothing more?" "Why, yes, look for yourself. I do not know what will please you." Suddenly she discovered in a black satin box a superb necklace, a diamond. Her hands trembled as she took it out. She placed it about her throat against her dress and was ecstatic. Then she asked in a hesitating voice, full of anxiety, "Could you lend me this? Only this?" "Why, yes, certainly." She fell upon the neck of her friend, embraced her with passion, then went away with her treasure. The day of the ball arrived. Madame Loisel was a great success. She was the prettiest of all, elegant, gracious, smiling, and full of joy. All the men noticed her, asking, asked her name, and wanted to be presented. She danced with enthusiasm, intoxicated with pleasure, thinking of nothing but all this admiration, this victory so complete and sweet to her heart. She went home towards 4 o'clock in the morning. Her husband had been fall asleep in one of the little salons since midnight, with 3 other gentlemen whose wives were enjoying themselves very much. He threw around her shoulders the modest wrap they had carried, whose poverty clashed with the elegance of the ball costume. She wished to hurry away in order not to be noticed by the other women who were wrapping themselves in rich furs. Loisel detained her. "Wait," said he, "I am going to call a cab." But she would not listen and descended the steps rapidly. When they were in the street, they found no carriage, and they began to seek for one, hailing the coachman whom they saw at the distance. They walked along toward the river, hopeless and shivering. Finally, they found one of those old carriages that one sees in Paris after nightfall. It took them as far as their indoor, and they went wearily up to their apartment. It was all over for her, and on his part he remembered that he would have to be at the office by 10 o'clock. She removed the wraps from her shoulders before the glass for a final view of herself in her glory. Suddenly she uttered a cry. Her necklace was not around her neck. Loisel, already half undressed, asked, "What is the matter?" She turned towards him excitedly. I no longer have Madame Forestier's necklace." He arose in dismay. "What? How is that? That is not possible." And they looked in the folds of the dress, in the folds of the cloak, in the pockets, everywhere they could not find. Students, here this is the end of the first part of the story. And in narration, I have clubbed first part and the second part. So we proceed on to the second part of this story. And now the second part of the story continues. And so now here we are when the couple is desperately searching for the lost necklace. And they look in the folds of the dress, in the folds of the cloak, in the pockets, everywhere. They could not find it. He asked, "You are sure you still had it when we left the minister's house?" "Yes, I felt it as we came out. But if you had lost it in the street, we should have heard it fall." "It must be in the cab." "Yes, it is possible." "Did you take the number?" "No." "And you? Did you notice what it was?" "No." They looked at each other, utterly cast down. Finally Loisel dressed himself again. I'm going, he said, "over the track where we went on foot, to see if I can find it." And he went. She remained in her evening gown, not having the force to go to bed. Towards 7 o'clock her husband returned. He had found nothing. He went to the police and to the cab offices and put an advertisement in the newspapers offering a reward. She waited all day in a state of bewilderment before this frightful disaster. Loisel returned in the evening, his face pale. He had discovered nothing. He said, "Write to your friend that you have broken the clasps of the necklace, and that you will have it repaired. That will give us time." She wrote as he dictated. At the end of a week, they had lost all hopes. And Loisel, older by 5 years, declared, "We must replace this jewel." In a shop of the Palais Royal, they found a chaplet of diamonds which seemed to be exactly like the one they had lost. It was valued at 40,000 francs. They could get it for 36,000 then. Loisel possessed 18,000 francs, which his father had left him. He borrowed the rest. He made ruinous promises, took money from the usurers and the whole race of lenders. Then he went to get the new necklace, depositing the merchant's counter 36,000 francs. It was too much, students. When Madame Loisel took back the jewel to Madame Forestier, the latter said to her in a frigid tone, "You should have returned them to me sooner, for I might have needed them." Madame Forestier did not open the jewel box as Madame Loisel feared she would. What would she see, think, if she would perceive the substitution? What would she say? Would she take her for a robber? Madame Loisel now knew. Yes, Madame Loisel now knew the horrible life of necessity. She did her part, however, completely and heroically. It was necessary to pay this frightful debt. She would pay it. They sent away the maid, they changed their lodgings, they rented some rooms in an attic. She learned the odious work of a kitchen. She washed the dishes, she washed the soiled linen, their clothes and disclothes. This what happened, which she hung on the line to dry. She took down the refuse of the street each morning and brought up the water, stopping at each landing to catch her breath, and clothed like a woman of the people. She went to the grocers, the butchers, and the fruiters with her basket on her arms, shopping, haggling to the last sou of her miserable money. The husband worked evenings, putting the books of some merchants in order, and nights he often did copying at 5 sous a page. So this is what happened to the couple. And this life lasted for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, they had restored all. So students, they were suffering the miserable days. Madame Loisel seemed old now. She had become a strong, hard woman, the crude woman of the poor household. Her hair badly dressed, her skirts awry, her hands red. She spoke in a loud tone and washed the floors with large pails of water. But sometimes, when her husband was at the office, she would sit herself before the window and think of the evening party of former times, of the ball where she was so beautiful and so flattered. How would it have been if she had not lost the necklace? She who knows how singular is life and how full of changes, how small a thing will ruin or save one. One Sunday, as she was taking a walk in the Champs Elysees, I repeat, one Sunday, as she was taking a walk in the Champs Elysees to rid herself of the care of the week, she suddenly perceived a woman walking with a child. It was Madame Forestier, still young, still pretty, still attractive. Madame Loisel was affected. Should she speak to her? Yes, certainly. And now that she had paid, she would tell her all. Why not? She approached her. Good morning, Jane. Her friend did not recognize her and was astonished to be so familiarly addressed by this common personage. She stammered, "But, madame, I do not know you. You must be mistaken." "No, I am Matilda Loisel." Her friend uttered a cry of astonishment. "Oh, my poor Matilda! How you have changed!" "Yes, I have had some hard days since I saw you, and some miserable ones, and all because of you." "Because of me? How is that?" "You recall the diamond necklace that you loaned me to wear to the minister's ball?" "Yes, very well." "Well, I lost it." "How is that, since you returned it to me?" "I returned another to you exactly like that, and it has taken us 10 years to pay for it. You can understand that it was not easy for us who have nothing. But it is finished, and I am decently content." Madame Forestier stopped short. She said, "You say that you bought a diamond necklace to replace mine? Yes, you did not perceive it then. They were just alike, and she smiled with proud and simple joy. Madame Forestier was touched and took both her hands, and she replied, "Oh, my poor Matilda, mine was false. They were not worth over 500 francs." And so here, this was the greatest disappointment for, for Matilda to listen. So students, here we end with the story. The moral of Guy de Maupassant's short story, The Necklace, is to be happy with what you have. Throughout the story, Mathilde Loisel is unsatisfied with her life. Students, the author's message was to acknowledge things in life that may only come once in a lifetime, because those little things are what make a person what they are. The main theme in the story, The Necklace, are greed, deceptive appearances, and beauty and vanity. Greed. Mathilde Loisel's overwhelming desire to live a life of luxury blinds her to the comforts she already possesses and ultimately leads to her losing whatever wealth and status she initially has. Students, this story also reflects the horrible irony of the fact that the Loisels spent years paying off a replacement for what was actually a worthless necklace is just one instance of irony evident in the necklace. Also, ironic is the fact that Matilda's beauty, which had been her only valued asset, disappeared as a result of her labor for the years. So, with this moral message and ironical background, we complete with this story. And now the workshop, English workshop, the assignment test before you on your screen. This is the part 2 assignment on your screen. Please complete this assignment in your English notebook. As suggested, you're supposed to prepare one 200 pages notebook for English, 200 pages notebook for grammar, and 200 pages for writing skills, that is compositions. So this is the assignment on your screen, which is much more supported with the grammar as well and writing skills topics. Again, I would like to scroll it upward because this is the assignment of second part. And now I move upward to the assignment of part 1. I hope students, the story narration is clear to you. And here again I scroll down the assignment of the first part. It is about who said to whom and all that. Your personal interpretation, your inferences are very much expected when you will complete this assignment. Please go through the story one more time, read it well, read it loudly, read it clearly. Try to understand it, try to understand the gist of the story and complete this assignment. And that's all for today's class. Have a nice day ahead. Thank you for listening me patiently. and take care of yourself. So here we end with this session. As you could see the pages on your screen. Yeah, so this is the end. Thank you.